In each case of suicide, an individual's personality cannot feel itself worthy of being alive because no one else cares, or they think no one else cares. So what other people think and feel matters to many of us more than life matters to us. I began wondering why others are so important to us, why people needed to be acknowledged by other people and know that they were valued by them, and came to understand that people need to legitimately belong to a family, an academy, a workplace, the military, a church, and a nation, because each aspect of the human being is at the same time looking for its integrity. The instinctive function, or the body, is looking to integrate itself with nature, and it does so through eating and dying. It is actually partially separate from nature during life, and it has to eat it because it depends on it. And what's important here is understanding the connection between the whole and the part, the wholesomeness of nature is needed by the body, by each particular body that belongs to it. And we'll find this same relationship in all other integrities. The function of movement is looking to integrate itself with space. People must move to survive, and they move around not only trying to meet the need to feed themselves, but trying to incorporate the rest of the world in their consciousness when they travel. In this movement, we can actually observe that people move around the center of power, like planets move around the center of the sun. Children move around the center of power that are the parents. Students around the teachers. And in this movement, this surrounding the whole, the center of power, the function of movement integrates itself with the space that it belongs to. Sexually, people must integrate with the opposite sex if humanity as a species is going to survive. Emotionally, people are born in the love of the family, receiving it, and when they form their own families, they give it. But love goes way beyond the family, and children don't learn if there's no love in a teacher that they can be inspired by. People go to the academy because the intellect longs to integrate itself to knowledge. The intellect moves around the need to realize itself in knowledge as an objective reality. I understand it's difficult to understand that love for the emotional function is an integrity as complex as nature is to the body, and the same relationship is present in the intellectual function in relation to knowledge. Each institution is the corresponding integrity in which an aspect of the human being needs to develop. When the integrity of such institutions fails to embrace its members, we get too many people that are being left out and entering a process of crime or self-destruction. When the family is too chaotic and absent, children are too lonely to develop a strong enough personality that can help them survive in the wild of culture. When an academy is so chaotic and its authorities so absent that bullying is regular, children feel worthless to anyone. When war veterans come back to society after offering their lives to the nation, and they are rejected by the nation, they can't go to a restaurant because they look too weird, because they act too weird, because their wounds don't allow them to act or perform like any other person. They were at some point not even allowed to go to a restaurant, and they've had to fight for these rights. They have also understood that the nation, the integrity that they fought for, is often not real, doesn't exist. When people are moved around from place to place in a big corporation or job and lose their roots, family and friends, this is often a cause of suicide amongst in corporate suicide. Life stops to matter when a man or a woman are sexually abused, a child or a youth. Nothing makes sense. And when people in a cult allow for the guru of the cult to use and abuse whoever he wants, there's a collective shame that has been systematically arrived at through a brainwashing that disempowers each and every one of the members to the point of committing suicide, as happened in Jonestown, where 909 people committed suicide for lunch when the guru ordered it. Those who didn't want to commit suicide were killed. The children were killed first, and then the parents killed themselves. When false politicians want to increase the amount of power they already have, they often convince the people that they have a common enemy and must be willing to die for the nation, or is also a form of self-destruction in too many cases. And in too many cases they are manipulated. People are manipulated by a politician in the political realm, like members of a cult are manipulated by the guru. People are willing to die because some aspect of the integrity of the nation is threatened. This should suffice for us to understand how much we love each other, how much we're willing to do for our integrity. For the integrity of the nation, but how strong is the identification with that wholesomeness, where we are willing to die because we belong to a unity. And this is weakening. As the world globalizes, this is weakening. But then as the world globalizes, are we going to understand ourselves as human beings, as an integrity? Or are we going to keep going to war with each other, trying to defend a little bit for ourselves without being able to integrate. Each institution is the corresponding integrity of an aspect of ourselves that needs to develop within it for us to become wholesome human beings. When these needs are not met, when the authorities in charge of these institutions fail to play the part that is required of them as centers of power able to fill the institution or the nation with life, part of their members are lost in the chaos they create. Suicide individuals are not just lunatics that didn't get it, but wounded people that were victims of the nation or institution that they belonged to. This attitude that people have, that people who commit suicide and survive are just too crazy to bear, makes it also easy for them to keep trying until they do succeed. Because it is much easier to blame someone for being too weak than to help them stand up. People who commit suicide are strong enough to quit without hurting others, while knowing the inhumaneness that all others are willing to indulge in. Suicide ratifies the failure of each institution and nation to hold legitimate standards able to protect the members that belong to it. Humanity is heading towards self-destruction inasmuch as it is systematically destroying nature in the passion of its 1% to appropriate everything now. In every institution, each person is unconsciously working towards that goal. Like every cult member in Jonestown, allowed to be disempowered by the guru. Humanity today doesn't understand an integrity able to hold each other together at the service of life, instead of at the service of anyone's interest. And we need to start understanding such integrity if we wish to survive our unconsciousness. Thank you. Oh, wait. In my personal experience, my mother committed suicide when I was 8 years old, and I tried to commit suicide when I was 27. That was not as tragic as having my children convinced that I was too crazy for them to be with me. And that is what we ought to be able to avoid when we treat people who are suffering. Thank you.